Hello, everyone. My name's Hank Suttala
I'm Casey McBride.
and special guest Jameson, and we're here with another fun episode of Stir Crazy Shamans. And thank you all for joining us. And thank you, Jameson, for being on again. It was so fun to connect with you last week and just hear a little bit about your story of how you came into all this craziness.
Appreciate you guys having me.
So last week we were kind of we had started with the topic of Norse mythology because Jameson has a lot of background in researching that, and then later after his awakening had become or discovered himself as a practicing Norse pagan, correct?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
So that was what we had started with, but then we kind of got into the topic of awakening and all kinds of other fun stuff. So we're just kind of going to flow wherever spirit decides to take us today.
Sounds good, guys. Sounds good.
So I guess I was curious to hear a little bit more about, speaking of the Norse pagan stuff, what does that mean for you on like a daily basis? And I know you say you just try to honor the gods as much as possible. What are some things that you do in order to respect your practices day to day?
Well, it's mostly like on a spiritual level where I, like, in my daily thought process, I give thanks to Odin, Freya, and go about my day with just trying to think of them and bring them into my life as I go about my day. I also tend to like spend a little time with my shrine and like just give thanks. Every so often put a cup of ale up there, and and like I collect like gemstones and herbs and all kinds of things. So like my shrine is quite the cluster F. It's literally, I've got gold, silver, platinum, all kinds of herbs and crystals and little things that I feel that would be just to honor them and be there. I've got a ruby like this big that I got like a couple months ago, and I was just like, okay, it's like I can either put this in my safe or it looks good here.
And for my own knowledge, I'm assuming that a shrine is that akin to an altar. I'm assuming it is.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Great. And part of the altar space too is it's twofold. One is to honor the deities and whatever guides and spirits you might be working with, but the other is, you're kind of alluding to it already, with all the gemstones and the herbs and things that you put, creating a space where it helps to raise our vibration, to alter our state of consciousness and be able to connect better.
Right. And it's funny because I was never a person to have a shrine, and like it was literally like one, like as I went through my spiritual awakening and realized that like my thought process was no longer like in like the Christian mindset, as it would be said, it literally came to me one day that this is appropriate and I have all the things I need to make this happen. And it felt so right and so good to make this little shrine for them. And like I still have like other deities in my shrine. Like I have like pictures of Buddha. I have like a cross that was made from nails, like up there. So there's other like religious connotations to my shrine, but it's mainly for the Norse gods.
Now, I have a question for both of you, actually. When it comes to like making offerings on your altar or shrine, this is something I've sometimes I don't know what to do. But when you make an offering, what do you
blood
do?
Sacrifice.
Oh, okay.
Just kidding.
Don't worry, not your blood, right?
But do you just leave the offering there for a while, and then what do you do with it after? Like, say, like you said, ale. Do you then like drink that after a certain amount of time, or do you dump it out, or what do you do with it afterwards?
Yeah, no, it's I was really wondering about that because like you don't want these things to go to waste. And like as I was like doing research on like best ways to give offerings, it specifically says don't let these things go to waste. Like if you were to do like a blood sacrifice, a goat or something, it's meant for you to eat afterwards. You're just like paying homage to them and what they give to you, and then of course partaking in it. Some people feel it's necessary to like pour it out to the earth a little bit. I found that it just felt right to, leave it out for like 5-10 minutes, as long as my heart felt right for it. And then me and Ivy would split it and just give her thanks. And it's like you don't want things to go to waste, because the whole point of that is for it not to go to waste. It's for thanking them for these things, and then you want to make sure that it is used the way they would want it to be used.
Well, for me, like I offer some of my deities rum. Shango likes rum, or Papa Legba. They have all different things that they like, coffee and things. And after it sits on the altar for a bit, I take it out and I usually gift it to a tree or somewhere out in my yard to some sort of nature spirits and things like that. So I just like Jameson, I'm not like pouring it down the drain or something like that. I'm actually going and gifting it to nature.
Great. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Like some people may feel different, but that's exactly how I feel that an offering should be made.
Or at an ancestor altar, this is more from hoodoo traditions or whatnot, you would maybe make a spirit plate for an ancestor. You would put whatever their favorite meal is, but you don't just leave it to waste either. You would end up taking that and putting it out in the nature and let the animals come and have it. So like you're still not even in that context, not wasting it. And one note on blood sacrifice, since we kind of were saying it in just a little bit, most of the time in ancient traditions where there is a sacrifice, there's a big gathering of people and you have to feed the people as well. So though they say sacrifice, it's not a sacrifice in the way of, hey, we're just killing something for the heck of it. It's like we're doing this to honor the spirits and we're feeding the people that came to partake in the ceremony. So it's like twofold, nothing being wasted or anything like that, or just to kill for the purpose of killing. Right,
exactly. And that's not the purpose, to just like kill for killing or sacrifice for waste. No. I think it's much more spiritual than like physical.
Right. But I know some people just joining us who are maybe watching us for the first time, that might be like something way out of the context. Like, what are these crazy people talking about?
Yeah, no, I do not do any like any type of like sacrifice in those kind of lines. I found that it's really not necessary if you look into what your god cares about or likes. And like, instead of like blood and meat, you can do honey. Like, they love honey. And especially Freya, it's a very common thing to give her honey instead of like, oh, let's kill a goat. No, I like animals way too much for that. I couldn't imagine like actually doing something like that. I think in context of like using blood for anything, I think the only time I would even think about that is if I was making my own runes, and that would be like a drop in the ink I used to like carved into the runes. Other than that, I couldn't imagine like, here's a whole bowl of blood. It seems a little crazy.
To create a context around the runes, that's more because you're adding part of your own vibration to the runes. It's representation of that more so than that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just putting it into context, because we could have a whole episode actually. Well, maybe this is last week's episode. We just kind of had them switched.
Oh, but yeah, I'm curious about the runes thing, because you work with runes a little bit yourself, right, Jameson?
Yeah.
And then I know Hank, that was what sort of was one of your first divination tools.
It was, and I don't remember much about it, but it was a stepping stone for me to go from where I was at to the I Ching and then to other tools and things. But it stung to my soul because there were so many correlations with Christianity religions and so much overlap that it kind of created like this kind of bridging space for me to kind of get okay with stepping out of what I was taught and all that. So it was an essential part for me.
Right. And like with like similarities, like if you look into the whole idea of the blood sacrifice, that's exactly what Christians do in church every single Sunday. Like, here's the blood of Christ, here's the body of Christ. That's literally their form of a blood sacrifice. And it's right there. The similarities are just uncanny.
And I remember, I know you have, Jameson, but in the show Vikings, I know a lot of that is actually based on what we know about the history of their culture. And they did a great job in that show of really showing the parallels between the spiritual practices of both like the Anglo-Saxon Christians and the Vikings. And I had thought prior to watching that series, and again, I don't know, maybe they just did it for the series, but maybe you could talk a little bit more on this. But I had always thought that the similarities were because the Christians, when they sort of, I don't even know the history all that well at all, but they sort of assimilated those practices, for that came from, Norse paganism, and then said, okay, no, it's not this god or whatever, it was Jesus, and just like transposed everything and like sort of assimilated it. But the way they portrayed it in that series was that these parallels were there before any of that happened, like when they were completely separate, as far as like Odin, hanging himself on a cross, and Jesus being hung on a cross, and like many other things. So I don't know, maybe you can touch on that a little bit more.
I definitely believe that the Christians were trying so hard to assimilate other cultures and other worship from other belief systems. Then there definitely is. There's no way that they didn't. Especially because the Romans, they conquered almost all of the known world, and they had so many religions to start to bring into their belief system when they became Christian. And like, to Christianize, they were like, okay, we can't just be like, no, this is exactly what happened. They're like, we got to help kind of, yeah, oh, you guys do that? Yeah, we do that for our God too. And like, that's where you get like Christmas, like all the different like holidays, Christian holidays, is they were all based off of other pagan beliefs, like so much.
Like Easter is based on when the full moon hits after the solstice or something like that.
Yep.
That's why it moves all the time, which is really rooted more in paganism.
Yep. And like the egg and the bunny, those are all beliefs for fertility, and those come from the old pagan belief, which I don't believe is Norse, but like the paganism of Eastern Europe, like in England. And like they would worship, God, what is it called?
Well, I thought there was a Norse reference.
There definitely is. Okay. Yeah. But the Easter itself came from like a fertility rite that like they would the sacrifice was a virgin would mate with their high priest or king, and she was a priestess, and it's Druidism. It's in Druidism. And like, I just can't remember the name of it's going to bother me now because I was literally just reading about this like yesterday. But it has to do with like the solstice and the sun, and like going into like, summer, and like the last days of the cold and going into spring. Yeah, it'll pop in my head like tomorrow when I don't read it anymore.
I remember this past Christmas, I was reading about some of the, I don't know in which pagan culture it was we were from, but there was the whole like Santa coming down the chimney thing was these spirits. Now I've started to explain that, and I realize I really don't remember what I'm talking about. But it was something akin to like as the sun is then like now on its return, then these certain spirits would like come down the chimneys and like leave some kind of like offerings or something or gifts. And again, just like that's where the like coming down the chimney thing came from. And then other aspects like the flying reindeers. I know that's a whole interesting topic about like the Amanita muscaria mushroom.
Yes. And that's why it makes them fly, right? Well, for those people to create context, there's a mushroom that it causes people to enter into a certain type of space, but it's toxic. But if you drink the urine from a reindeer after they eat the mushroom, then it's not toxic, and you get the effects without having to die. So I don't recommend anybody do that, but that's where flying reindeer, that whole concept, one of the possible places that it came from.
And also the red nose thing is the mushrooms have this red color, and so
yeah, and the reindeer that eat them, their noses do actually turn red because they get addicted to the mushroom. And so, like, they can't stop eating it. So it's kind of like
so Rudolph was an addict.
Yes,
I knew it. But then also they grow underneath evergreen trees a lot of times, and that's where the presence under the tree that you would find those, and it was like a gift from the divine that you had this gift that was going to help you connect and that type of thing. So there's a lot of references, and even the red coat, I believe that the shaman tradition of the Siberian region of Russia, that was one of the types of things that they would wear. So like the Santa Claus with the red suit, there's all kinds of different references threaded throughout all the different traditions.
So many.
It's
Like
so
the number of reindeer is the legs of Odin's horse. As like, there's so many things. Like the leaving a gift like cookies and like milk. That was like an old Norse pagan ritual too. That on the like winter solstice, they would leave gifts for Odin, and because he would see these gifts, he would leave presents for the little kids.
It's amazing when you really start to dive into it. There's like this whole rabbit hole of, and these are things that a lot of people, whether they're religious and Christian or not, we still in the United States at least practice or celebrate, Christmas and Easter and all these various holidays. And, when you really start to look into it, again, it's just a whole rabbit hole of, how all this stuff came to be. And, I think it's a really cool area to start to open the mind a little bit and start to open certain people up to like different ways of thinking. But I'm glad that we have this information now, because I think that it is inspiring a lot of people like you, James. Well, I mean, I'm sure you didn't come about it this way, or you could have, I don't know. But I know there's so many people who really resonate with the energy of these old traditions. And if this sort of information wasn't out there, maybe a lot of people wouldn't discover that, and they would just feel sort of like lost, and they wouldn't have, that sort of way of practicing and honoring the divine that really resonates with them. So I think it's awesome.
It's a great way to bring other religions into the spiritual with each other. Like, finding out that like we're not out there to destroy your spirituality, and like a lot of like misconceptions happen, especially with the Christians conquering the world, trying to remove other religions specifically. But like in the day and age now where we are, where spiritual is something for everyone, with all this new information, we can realize that all of these are connected, that we're all connected, and that we're not meant to like destroy each other's belief systems. We're supposed to like respect their belief systems so that we can all grow as one spirit and move forward in life and find more ways of helping each other. And there's nothing wrong with anybody believing what they believe, unless you're literally killing people for your religion, which is exactly what a lot of religions did and it was terrible times. Like, I always laugh when people are like, oh, well, the Islam is doing a holy war on the Christian world. It's like, you do realize that the Crusades happened for 400 years and we were the terrorists, right? Like, we literally went there specifically to destroy their world for 400 years. Their holy war's been going for maybe 20. And it's like, yeah, it's been a lot longer than that, but it's just realizing that like a lot of this special carnage in war is caused because of previous crimes made upon their religion. And we've got to get past that.
Oh, and that's where bridging from religion to spirituality is really key, because religion, like whatever you're called to connect, is kind of like a set of tools or whatnot, but the spirituality is the direct dialogue itself,
right?
With whatever calls to you. And you might be surprised, because I was raised Lutheran, and I call myself a recovering Lutheran. and then the next thing you know, I'm getting into shamanism, and then following one of the African traditions, and working with the Orishas and stuff like that. It was not even in my field of possibility 10 years ago. That would be how I was connecting, and how divinity would. And I actually got from spirit that the reason that it started to come to me through the African spirits was because I had no knowledge of it at all. And I had a clean slate. And I was specifically told, don't go get learning about this now. We'll teach you everything you need to know. I'm like, okay.
That is so amazing. I'm like, absolutely. I know like a lot about different religions and cultures. I want to know more about the African like belief system. And like, they're just such a beautiful culture with like amazingly gorgeous beliefs and what they do, but I know nothing about it.
Yeah, and perhaps one of the oldest religions and cultures or things of spirituality on the planet. Maybe the oldest, if not the oldest, or one of the oldest, I should say. And there's even in the, in case you appreciate this, with the shamanic apprenticeship program that we're starting for the South American traditions, there's even influences in that tradition from Africa. So like, how connected was the world back then from however means it could be connected way back then, that there was already influences, thousands of years ago from all the different places in the world.
Oh, it's so
Right.
amazing. And no, Hank, I'm just curious. Is that something that you learned from Zane? The
Yeah,
African
the eswardo. There's a particular type of protective medallion that has correlations to some of the African traditions that we learn.
Okay, and I know, like for me, that's one of the things I'm having to show my internal restraint for is that we just had our first like night of ceremony with this tradition that I'm learning, like the Quero traditions and the Peruvian shamanism, and I did that first ceremony, and it was so powerful for me, and I just wanted to like buy books and read everything I could about it. But Spirit was like, no, don't. Like, just experience this firsthand first, have the raw experience with it. And then if you want to develop the conceptual knowledge afterwards, then you can.
And I'll tell you what, I picked up some books after Zane's. I took his the apprenticeship twice and then the masterclass once before I even picked up a book. And I found like this book thing of 4 books that had a lot of the information that had come into class, but then a lot of other new stuff. And at night, the Caro came to me and they were like, they made that up. We didn't say that. They totally changed that. And they were actually telling me from the book that I read what was what and what was true, what wasn't true, what they said, what they didn't say. And they're like, we don't even know where they came up with that. And it was like, really, because there was like one thing where you have to take each stone and you put it in a little bag and you have 2 extras and they have carnations in those. And then depending which hand the person uses to pick up which bag and what stone it is, it tells you all this information. They're like, we never said any of that.
The Quero have showed up for me right after our first ceremony, or I should say they invited me to come along with them on a journey. But they've been popping up like throughout the days from time to time, and oh my gosh, just the energy of keeping like the playfulness alive is so incredible. But it seems like they're very willing, not just in person but in spirit, to really help those who are interested in actually learning. Like they're just ready to help us to step out of our current paradigms and wake up to the sacred play of their traditions.
Absolutely. It's so much fun. I haven't watched the video you made of it yet, but I'm looking forward to diving into your full experience with that.
Oh yeah. And they still they just this morning were popping in and messing with me. They're hilarious.
Oh,
yeah.
they've messed with me. Oh, like I was doing a ceremony and I had my own kintu, right? And I had placed something and it was totally covered up and I couldn't find it. And so like then I made a new one. And then when I found it, I'm like, well, now I have to add like an extra one. So what am I going to call in? And I decided to do something. Well, they gave me the inspiration, just call in all the spirits that want healing. I'm like, okay, man, that was like one of the most intense concerts because literally the whole room was packed with spirit people. And I was processing them more than the people that came for the concert. I'm like, guys, if you want to come back for another one, you got it. But this was more about them because of what I called in. And so if you want to come to the next one on me, that's cool. Because it really became about all of our spirit people and the facilitation that we can do for them. And that's a great reminder too. Like it's not just physical people that might need healing. Like what contribution can we be to the spirit world?
Yeah,
absolutely. And a lot of my shamanic journeys, I think it depends. I think where we're at. In the beginning, when I was journeying, there was a lot of time where I just was, there was a lot of healing that happened for me, and there still is. But at a certain point, for a long time, I really wasn't doing a lot of work for myself. I was traveling to all different realms in spirit, places similar to like here on Earth, but then also like far off planets, other realms, parallel versions of Earth, etc. And the work that I was doing was to help to heal and act as like a mediator and all kinds of things for these other beings that were in need of help. And so, yeah, that's something that I think some people don't really consider when getting into this work, is it's not just about physical humans. There are many very real co-creational beings and spirit that also need our aid.
And because you used the word mediatorship or a mediator, I want to bring up that in the Alice Bailey work, which is a lot of channelings from a particular monk, I believe it's a monk, but anyway, they said that at the time when physical mediumships first started, it was needed just to kind of help prove the continuity of life, but that was going to shift from mediumship into mediatorship, if I remember the correct term, where it's more of like of a facilitation and that kind of role. So just the fact you used that word, I wanted to throw that out there for you for your consideration.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. Yeah, and I'm. Where was I going with that?
Sorry, didn't mean to derail you. It happens a lot.
Oh yeah, it does. It's all good. All pook the eye. Yeah, if anyone else has words while my words start to come back.
Well, just a note for those of you just joining us, you can always make comments, and we can we don't have any rules of having to stay on topic, obviously. So if you have a comment or a question, it could be anything. There's nothing off limits. You can feel free to offer that, and we can speak to it. And if we do say we make comments, just as a reminder, it does not roll through to my personal Facebook profile or Casey's. You can only see comments that we make on either the Sonic Shaman page, the YouTube channel, or HHH. For some reason, the program we're using doesn't let us post comments to our personal profiles. Ironic. We can see your comments, but we can't post back, which is just kind of odd. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't think I can see. Oh wait, I can go to live comments and see.
Yeah, you can see comments, but you can't comment back. So I know we have Sue joining us, saying me again.
Welcome.
So I'm glad that you found us again. And if you are watching this for the first time, we do this every day right now. And for the near future, we're going to continue doing it every single day. And we have all kinds of different topics. So like the last time we had Jameson on, which is kind of like what we started today with. Oh, did I have it? I have it in the background. So you can see the kind of that we had a whole thing about the runes that might be more appropriate for today because that's what we're talking more on. But we have all kinds of different topics. So if you go through our YouTube channel, go to the archive, you can see that we will have we had like Jill Mattson on doing something on COVID-19. We had Crystal Skulls talking about all kinds of fun information. So it's not just it's something different every day. So go check it out.
I traded readings with Michelle yesterday. And that was so magical. She has such clear communication with those crystal skulls. It's like I got the sense that she can communicate with them more clearly than most of us can communicate with other humans.
It could be.
That's really awesome stuff. Like the crystal skulls. Like I haven't gotten a chance to watch it, but just from previous knowledge that I've known, the crystal skulls are some crazy energy, like energy to this world. Like
oh yeah,
if certain there's so many that are the really large ones, and if they're brought in proximity of each other, they start to glow. And it's mind-blowingly interesting stuff there.
And actually, I'll be right back. I got to go grab one since we're talking about it. I'll go grab Texay, which means cosmic in Quechua. I'll be right back.
Awesome.
But yeah, she was talking about what you talked about when these skulls come together. I guess the more ancient crystal skulls, she was talking about how they have like a certain number of, you can think of it as like bands of energy, almost like bandwidth. Mm-hmm. And like the more ancient ones, I think it was like they have like 16 bands of energy that they like can communicate with. And then these newer ones don't have as many, but if you bring the newer skulls in with these more ancient skulls, they like sort of attune to each other's energy. And then the new ones gain more of these bands of energy.
That's really cool.
And here is Texay. It's
I don't think I've met Texay before.
Lepidolite, and it has an Amaru on top of serpent.
Oh, I like it. I like it a lot.
It's gorgeous.
And then I also brought one. This isn't a crystal per se. This is lava rock.
Wow.
Is that the first one you got?
I got all three at the same time.
Oh, did you?
And I didn't plan to get them, but Melissa had brought them back from a gem show, and I got very strongly that if I didn't buy them, they were going to be separated, and they didn't want to be separated. So I ended up getting them. And I use them on my Mesa spread. I have one by each one of the staffs, which represents the three worlds. So in a sense, each one holds the energy, one for the lower world, one for the middle world, and one for the upper world. Is kind of how I have them assigned to hold energy during ceremony.
Oh, I love it.
That's cool.
Yeah, this little guy, I love him. It was so cool. I really wanted something like with a snake on it, and Melissa found the perfect skull to bring back for me.
Oh, that's so cool! And I was told that there's a skull waiting for me that's going to show up, and that when it shows up, it's not even going to be a question. I'm just going to be like, "Oh, yep, yeah, that's the one." So excited for that.
I know there's a really nice labradorite one over at the Goddess Elite right now.
I feel like labradorite came up in the reading. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, and like it's a beautiful piece, and I can't believe it hadn't been sold yet. But it's kind of like if it's meant for you, like no one else is going to see it there on the table. Everybody just passes it by until the right person comes along. That's either it's for them, or it knows that this person's going to buy me, but it's going to get me to the person that I need to work with.
Yeah.
And labradorite is an extremely beautiful stone to begin with by itself.
Yeah.
There's so many gorgeous stones out there. But that's one of my top favorites.
Yeah, they're all my favorite.
Yeah, I grew up with a very large amount of crystals around me at all times. My dad was very drawn to them. We had a 300-pound amethyst. I had
I think I've seen the dude.
Yeah, and my mom still has it. I talked her into keeping that, and actually not in the room anymore. But I have my stone is citrine, and I have a 3-foot tall citrine geode. I just can't have it around the baby because she just wants to grab it, and we realized that she could start to reach for it through her crib. And I'm like, I would feel so bad if she cut her hand on it.
Uh-oh.
But
did you? No, you're. I think you're good.
Oh no, I did freeze, but because by the time I said that, it was like a 30-second delay.
Oh,
or something like that.
Oh no, sorry. Go on. You were saying you're afraid of her cutting her hand on the.
Yeah. So I moved it into another part of the house, but man, there's the amount of stones. My dad literally had thousands and thousands and thousands of crystals. It's I think actually I finally got someone to take. I had a 600-pound quartz crystal, rose quartz, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this thing. How am I going to even move it? It took me and 4 other people to get it on something so that we can move it, and then we actually had to get we couldn't get it in the trucks. We had to go get something to pull it on. It's just so heavy. Oh man, yeah, that thing sat in our garden for 15 years, and it was just such an amazing rock. And when my mom had to move, I'm like, you can't just leave that in the garden. You got to find someone that'll enjoy it.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, and I know. It's you, Hank. Okay, that confused me. So you can't see it, Jameson, but down here people pop up, or maybe you can. Who
Not
are
that I can see.
join. And Hank popped up down there, so that confused me.
No, the reason I did that is I can take this the other device on a field trip to my office to look at crystals.
Oh, there you go. That's fine.
That's awesome.
I don't know if it's through you, Hank, but I'm hearing.
You are. That's me.
Okay. So I'm hearing my voice
coming
out.
Because the stream is now it should be stopped.
Oh, all kinds of pucklei today.
Well, it was a good thing in theory. I'm going to kick myself from the studio.
Okie dokie.
Bye-bye.
It was a good idea in theory. I think I have to practice that once to make sure I can do it without a hitch next time. Sorry, everybody. Well, I have these really beautiful geodes and stuff in my office, and when we're talking about crystals, I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to be able to take the iPad over and show it on cam or whatnot, but it didn't quite work out.
We should definitely have a conversation about crystals and the energy that they help bring into the world. There's just so many beautiful crystals. I absolutely adore them. I really wish I could have had kept more of my father's collection, but that's not for me to decide. It's my mother's collection, and I'm grateful for the ones that she did allow me to have. The citrine was specifically from my father, and he was a Scorpio like me, so it really means a lot to me to have a piece of what I consider him,
Yeah, and they do. The crystals, part of the reason the skulls are so powerful is because they are made of these different crystals, and crystals are they hold energy that we can actually program them with, and they will continue to do the work and carry the intentions that we put into them, even if we're not like actively focusing on that. They continue to do all kinds of stuff. And I was talking to Michelle about it, and she kind of agreed that all these crystals, the way that the structure is so complex, like on a molecular level, that it's almost like a structure of like neurons, like in our brains, and it's like this communication network that almost happens. And so I think crystals can be an excellent way to connect with the divine, various spiritual beings. But then you said like you feel a connection to your father. I wouldn't be surprised if like a crystal could be a way for him to like really shine his energy through to connect with you, especially if it's a crystal that you both really had bonded with.
Yeah. And I wish that I sensed him more often, but my father was a very spiritual man. I do believe he is out there just exploring the universe at like Mach speeds. And as far as I've felt him in my daily life, like I've maybe felt him like once or twice in like the 10 years he's been gone. He doesn't make many stops on Earth anymore.
Well, I was thinking about that the one day I was walking through the forest around here, and I look and I'm like, man. And I was just kind of remembering some of the other national parks I'd been to, and like Alaska and all this stuff. And I thought, man, I'm like, this really is an extremely beautiful planet. And I'm like, once the physical shell is shed, I'm definitely going to stop here from time to time and just walk around the forests.
It also makes you wonder if our planet is this gorgeous and so beautiful, like it's impossible for there not to be other gorgeous planets out there. It's impossible. Like statistically, there's no way that there's not more beautiful places out there. And just like once you do ascend to that spiritual form, I can't wait to check them out.
you can check them out now. You're very good at journeying, and I can tell you firsthand experience. I've been to all kinds of incredibly beautiful planets, and if you're interested in setting up a session for journeying, we can focus on traveling to some other beautiful worlds.
Yeah, I'm definitely would love that, man. Like,
and how many people might have already visited beautiful worlds in their dreams and not recognized it, that they were journeying to somewhere else. I remember as a kid, there was like this one place that I would just kind of visualize, and I would be just like being there, like floating out in space on this asteroid. And then years later, like watching an episode of Star Trek, like I saw the same scene that I had used as a kid, and there it was on TV, and it's like, whoa. I thought that was just in my head, but they created it on a TV show. So you never know what you might be imagining that's real.
Right, and that artist that helped design that could have been there on a dream or spiritual journey, and then was like, oh, this is going to be perfect for this scene. I can remake this for people to enjoy.
Absolutely.
I believe a lot of people have gone to different realms, different spiritual areas, and just never known that they'd visit these places. Like, dreams are such a complex thing. Like, it took me years to get good at being able to recognize that I'm dreaming. And like now I do it almost every time I have a dream. It's like, oh, welcome to the dream world. Time to go do something.
That was one of the things that first started to shift my view of reality was when this is, I think, like 12 years ago or more, when I started to really get into lucid dreaming. And I remember years and years before this, I had a friend who we were in grade school, and he was telling me, yeah, my uncle's into this thing where you can realize that you're in a dream while you're dreaming, and you can do all this stuff. You can like control the dream and all that. I remember thinking, I'm like, no way, that's not possible at all. I'm like, there's no way that's a real thing. And then years later, came across it, and just, I don't know how. But I'm like, oh my God, this is the thing that people actually do. So the first thing you do is to start to practice with like dream recall, right? Because that's something we may be having all these experiences where we're traveling to other realms and or becoming aware of our dreams and doing all this stuff. But if you don't remember it after you wake up, then
Right. And dream journals are an amazing way to start moving in the right direction for lucid dreaming. Like you got to get your set time aside after you dream, that right in the morning or right in the afternoon, whenever you take that nap or have that dream, to write down enough specifics so that your brain kind of keeps it there. Because that was one of the biggest struggles I had with myself, was realizing I was dreaming And so I found that once I started to write them down, my mind would recall this once I get into a dream. And then it helped slow down that startle moment you get when you realize you're dreaming, and that pops you out of it. And it's almost like it slowed down the thought process just enough so I stayed there. And then it was just like the whole world and universe opened up to me, and I was able to do anything, literally anything, except for fly. I still haven't quite figured that out. I can do really long and high and far hops.
The jumping thing I've done so many times in dreams. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like this, just like giant space jump or something.
Yeah,
like from the Matrix, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Sure. By the end of the movie, he flew though, so I'm sure it's in the script for you at some point.
I think it's just getting I think what holds me back on that is my own mind, because I know I can do it, but I don't know if it's maybe I used to have a real heavy fear of heights, which I no longer have, but I wonder if subliminally I still have a bit of that. Because every time I do these long hops, or I've done glides and I've gone really far, as soon as I'm headed back to Earth, I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna hurt. And then it doesn't, and it's okay, so it's I just have to break over that hump in my dreams to take off.
And I know one of the most reoccurring, whether it was lucid or not, most of the time I'm not lucid. I'm not aware that I'm dreaming, but the most reoccurring theme I've had in my dreams since I was a little kid, as far back as I can remember, I've periodically had dreams where I discover the ability to use telekinesis, and it goes sort of a similar way each time, where I'm in the dream and then all of a sudden I'm sitting there and I can feel this object, and then all of a sudden I lift it up and it's levitating or something, and then I go, oh, I figured out how to do it finally, and then I just sit there and I play around with it. But the thing that sparked that was interesting is throughout my dreams, there are some dreams where if I'm using say telekinesis, for example, in some dreams I really struggle just to lift a coin, a penny, off of a table. And then in other dreams where I've been a little more conscious, I can slow down and shift the way that I'm controlling it. And then I've lifted an entire house that I was in off of the ground, up into the sky, and lifted helicopters and cars and all kinds of crazy things. But then others, it's I'm in the dream space, but then it's that little tiny thing. It's I can't get it to move. But I have noticed it's so maybe this will help you a little bit, Jameson. It's being in the space of really allowing and relaxing that those abilities become a lot more powerful for me. So for example, if I'm trying to levitate or fly, if I sit there and I'm trying to use power to shoot myself off, then I may just float a little bit, and then it's I get exhausted and I come back down. But then instead, if I completely surrender to the experience and just relax and enter the space of allowance, and then just kind of gently set this intention that I'm going to start to levitate or fly, and then just allow the experience to happen in a completely relaxed way, then it's effortless, and I'm just, and then I'm off after that. maybe try that and see how that goes.
Definitely. Yeah, my dream last night, I was stuck picking up lighters and drawing a midget. Yeah, I don't know what was up with my dream last night. It was just weird. My neighbor had a party, and picking up all these extra lighters that were in her lawn, and then I went inside, and there's two midgets wanted me to draw them for some movie, so I was making doodles, and yeah, it was a little strange. My wife was like, "What?" Dreams are amazing. They're so fun.
Now, for me, I know a lot of people who do spiritual work. They get a lot of their, or not work, whatever, their passion, the things that they practice. They receive a lot of their information, and they feel like they're getting a lot accomplished in the dream space. And as much as I talk about journeying and visiting these far off places and all the amazing things I've done, I really don't. I don't feel like well, at least I don't recall it. But the dreams aren't the way that I do that. It's through journeying, and I'm fully awake when this is happening, but I exit my body and travel other places. But right. I'm not asleep, unconscious, and dreaming.
Spiritual journeying is the perfect lucid dream. It really that's what it feels like for me. And I love that it's just like it's a space where you can literally concentrate on anything you could ever imagine and do, and really connect with the spirit. And like dreams are more of just like a subliminal, here you go, off you go. This is, you know, like, but I do believe that a lot of like your main dreams that you have at night are there to help you connect with spirits, maybe on a level that we don't exactly see right away. I know that one of like my most vivid dreams was what got me into the spiritual, and like I got baptized because of that dream specifically. And like the dreams can lead to such spiritual awakenings, and I do believe that that was one of the steps towards my spiritual awakening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know real communication definitely does come through from the spirit world in our dreams, but yeah, but like you said, it's a different space. It's a different type of communication than that which happens when we journey. For me, journeying is how to describe it. I definitely get this sense that I'm really, maybe that's not the right way to put it.
There is no right way to put it.
But for me, it's when I'm journeying versus dreaming. Journeying is more like I know for sure, like I can feel I'm communicating with these other beings, receiving a really clear communication, and it's as if I'm, as if I'm communicating with humans, like you guys. We can have this kind of conversation, this level of like sort of realism. There's not the same kind of continuity, and the senses aren't the same, except for recently they've started to become a little more like that. But then in dreams, like, at least my dreams, they are all over the place and all kinds of like just chaotic, weird stuff that I'm like, okay, what does that have to do with anything? And I'm sure if I really sat down, like things would start to, there'd be some synchronicities, but some, I mean, are just so bizarre. But then I've had other dreams where like I have traveled to other planets and things and experienced some really powerful stuff.
Yeah, I think spiritual journeying is like communication, like between you and the spirit world, and then dreaming is more of an incoming communication. Like you have less, like it's very powerful, but you have less like ability to communicate back. It's more you're just on the receiving end. At least that's how I feel with my dreaming.
I think it could go either way. Everybody has different experiences with it. I think you can, like, just like a muscle, when you develop intuition, if you start to develop your dream muscles, if you will, you can have more and more different experiences. And there is something to be said too, just from how the physical body what happens in REM sleep and how like long-term memory, short-term memory goes to long-term memories and stuff like that, that there is a higher amount of maybe things getting worked out in the other than conscious. But it's also layered. It's like a lasagna. Right. So like while you're dreaming, there's like what's going on here with your memories and like, getting your short-term to long-term memory. Then there's what's going on in the astral. Then there's what's going on. It's like all the layers of lasagna are happening at the same time. And if you discipline your consciousness and your awareness, you could actually have like what sounds like to me is happening with Casey is he's aware of all these different layers of the lasagna at once. And you just haven't quite like focused on one particular thing, and it looks chaotic. But if you were to look at it layer by layer, it might make more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're taking a bite out of the whole lasagna. You're not appreciating the layers of the lasagna. Yeah,
when I was a kid, I would peel off each layer and eat it individually. I would dissect my Chef Boyardee ravioli. So you got to just eat one little layer at a time.
But I tell you, I don't know. Maybe Hank, you can talk to this a little bit. I think this would be we're kind of on the topic, but in my shamanic journeying, and I've been doing it since I was a kid. But there has always been this sort of sense that I know that I'm journeying, and the senses don't come through in exactly the same way that like my physical sight and touch and other things happen. They're very vivid and very real in many and most of my journeys. But again, it's not the same as like the physical senses. But after that ceremony we had in the shamanic apprenticeship, I was lying in my bed and this portal over here opened up next to me, and there were these Caros on top of the mountain in the Andes, and they were like, come on over here. So I proceeded to have this journey with them, and there were moments where I forgot that I was there in spirit, and because looking out at this mountainous landscape, and I remember the scenery, every little detail it was as if exactly like I was seeing it with my physical eyes. And I remember at one point just touching the ground, and I could feel every little blade of grass and everything was exactly like I was physically there. So maybe you can touch on why I had that experience right after the initiation a little bit, or whatever you feel comes through about that.
Well, why? Because you were ready to have the experience.
Okay.
Is one of the things. And just a question to ask you, and maybe it's relevant or not, but truth, were you using somebody else's body for a short time? Were you a walk-in for a short time? Were you borrowing a body of the Caro?
Now, okay, I have to think about that because they were addressing me, and
well, they knew that you were borrowing someone's body. If that's the
right.
case.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So because that's not an unknown concept, but like if you were having tactile sensations, though it may be possible to have that in total spirit, like the physical body is designed for that. And if you were having that real of an experience, I have to wonder, did you simply co-occupy or be in another body for that period of time to work with those Caro on that level? Maybe not.
I may have. No, now that you say that
that was the first inspiration that came to me, was to ask that question.
Okay, so nothing, but then if and I know it's possible for them to be.
Did he just die or here? What's going on?
Oh no,
I don't think I clicked anything, but
I didn't click anything. Oh jeez. Wow, we got some strong energy coming through.
Oops.
Oh, he says, I think my internet went out.
Oh, no.
Message him. Well, if you get it back, hop back on.
Oh, that's fun. You know, for some reason, energetically, I thought I just did that somehow by accident.
Maybe you did. Maybe you killed his internet.
Not on purpose.
Oh, there he is. He's back.
You know, it kind of reminds me of last week we were talking about how you wish you could just like hit someone and knock them out of their body.
Yeah.
You just knocked me out of the room.
Well, in that moment, I just moved my left hand like towards the keyboard on my laptop, and I didn't push any buttons. But in that moment, you went away, and there was such a correlation between my hand movement and you going away. I thought I did it. Or maybe I did. I don't know. If so, I'm sorry.
No worries. I was like, what? Oh, but our internet here is just the wonkiest thing on the planet. Like, we'll have perfect reception for like weeks on end, and then the one time we want it to work, it doesn't want to.
Sounds like it's perfect. If you wanted it to work, it lacked working.
Right.
Just speaking, to put that in context, if people aren't aware, we use the word want, the energy of the word want, interchangeably with the word desire, but want really means to lack, like rich people want for nothing. So just be, people can use it energetically the correct way with using the wrong word, and sometimes not. So just throwing it out there in case you weren't aware of, if you want money, maybe you lack money, and how to change your word choice around to put out a different energy to the universe.
Oh, but now I'm really curious about this. I'm going to have to ask those Caros next time they pop up. And
did you look at your hands? Did you look at your feet?
Well, no, I had my body looked like my body, and actually that was one of the things that happened. Is when I normally journey, the form that I take is of an angel, because that's where that's how I'm used to journeying. That's where I come from before Earth, and I showed up in that form, and one of them hits me on the stomach and is like, "That's not what you look like right now." And then I became like this physical body, but I was naked. And then they all kind of laughed, and they were like, "Oh, look at this idiot!" And then they hit me again, and then I had my clothes on. They're like, "Oh, that's better. Now we can hang out."
It reminds me of in the Matrix movie where he's like, it's your digital or your projection of your digital self or something, like how he shows up in the Matrix.
Yeah.
So anyway, just a fun thought. But I wonder, what comes to me is maybe you were just borrowing a physical body for a short moment.
I could have been. I mean, it was so. Yeah, I haven't experienced anything like that really. That was. And I remember just at one point sitting there, and I even closed my eyes in this space, and it was just I could feel like the blood moving through my veins and everything. It was so.
Some poor dude in the Andes is like, I think I just got possessed.
Like, what me in? So
that's getting ahead of ourselves in the apprenticeship, but we'll have a weekend diving into that.
You're just making me more excited now.
We could have a whole episode just on walk-ins and dual occupants and all that kind of thing, which is a whole nother, for some people, not uncomfortable. It's just way out of the left field, but it's definitely a thing.
Hey, we've already been pretty out of the left field for a while in this.
It's true, but we don't know who's tuning in. Like they could be in the Bible Belt and like never heard any of this stuff, and they're about to get yelled at from their parents for watching crap on the YouTube.
What are you watching? I heard blood sacrifices and
It's too late. He's already heard it.
Well, hey, they knew what they were getting into. They turned into stir crazy shamans, not,
Oh, true. Yeah, like on our station name, like if you stir crazy shamans, what do you expect to find? And if you're not comfortable, then you had an expectation, and you're having resistance, and that's cool.
Right.
Because now it's in your consciousness, and you can't unknow it.
I love that was the moment, though, that you brought up. Some people might be like the whole blood sacrifice thing. Nothing was mentioned, and then dual occupancy. Oh no, people might be uncomfortable with that. I love that was the moment that you chose to say that.
Yeah, well, I brought it up on the other things too. Now we got a little funny thing from YouTube here. Someone, Faith Elizabeth, she's laughing at that. Well, I'm glad you think it's funny, Faith. Well, but different people get triggered from different things, and you never know.
Right.
And if you ever are watching us and we come across something that isn't comfortable, instead of shutting down to it, ask, well, what is it about this that I'm not willing to receive or acknowledge, or what different vocabulary do I need to use to make it palatable for me? Because the information, the words are just a limitation on conveying a much greater concept. Casey always talks about it. The words point to an energy. Right. And so we're just pointing to an energy, and label it whatever you like, if it makes it more comfortable. But one thing that you never want to do is to shut yourself off from an idea, because if we are all one, to shut off from any one thing is to cut a piece of yourself off, and then you'll never be whole. So
that's a great way to put it, man. It's like communication is like the nerves of this giant body that we are. And in this physical form, we're limited by speech. And like, not completely. Some people have understand different ways of like communicating with, spiritual, with the physical, with using your eyes, your mouth, not with just words. But it's like we're all the different cells, and we have to communicate to each other in this one body. And if you just shut off that communication, you're blocking yourself off, and you're literally killing part of you, which isn't healthy at all, and only I think is extremely unhealthy. You have to communicate, even if something is bothering you.
Right. And that's really the art of allowance. We talked about it before. Like, it's an access concept in a way. It's an old concept, but the way I like to say this is access verbiage, that if you align and agree with or resist or react to anything, you're relating to it instead of creating to it. And in the space of allowance, everything can just be, and then you can choose who you're going to be in creationship to it. So it's really, you let everything be as it is. Don't shut yourself off to anything, but with true awareness, you can make the choices that will create the greatest possibility for you. But if you shut off on one thing, then you just don't have one piece of information that might have changed everything.
Right.
Yeah. That's fun stuff. I'm so glad we're doing this, because I can go back and like some things when I say it, like I know I'll never remember it the same way again, or if I wanted to duplicate it. Like now I can go back and actually watch, what did I say?
Oh yeah.
Or what Casey says. We all have our own little niches of how to speak to something really well. And like curious awareness, I love, is one of Casey's.
Yeah, curious awareness. Yeah, I love that. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if I came up with that or if that was from someone else. But
yeah, everything kind of blends together because we're one, man.
Yeah, we are. We're all one. So I came up with like everything. Really, it was all me.
It's all you. You're the only one in the room, and so are we. Kingdom of we instead of the kingdom of me, except it's really kingdom of I. Unless it's not. Until it is. Which brings me to one of my other favorite little quotes from Neil Donald Walsh. In the absence of that which you are not, that which you are is not.
Love it.
And Mike's joining us too, saying he's pot and pock and all that, meaning destroying and uncreating everything that doesn't allow all that craziness to happen. Cool. Well, we're coming up on the hour mark. Is there any final words? Or, I mean, we can also go over a little bit if we feel there's something else to speak to, but I'm just throwing it out there because we're coming up on our signature hour mark in the stream here.
Yeah, Jameson, anything that comes through? Well, we were all over the place. So I don't even.
Right. No, I had something earlier, and then we went on to another topic, and it's like in the back of my brain, and I can't quite find it yet. So sadly, yeah.
We could
find it
today's
later.
episode and have like 10 separate standalone episodes just from the things that we bounced around on today.
See, these are my favorite ones, though. I love these where we just jump into all different directions. That's yeah.
And like you said, Hank, we can later on. We should watch these episodes and then like hey, we should talk more about this and like come back to it. And these kind of these episodes are us spitballing ideas, and then we can make more.
Well, we could
from
definitely
those.
do that. But the other thought that just came to me is with editing, we could actually make like best of episodes, like the best of all the stir crazy shamans, and just cut and splice it. How cool would that be?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Be great.
Like if we're ever gonna miss an episode, it's like how they do it on the radio. They have like the best of days, so like they're still on air. So like if we're on vacation somewhere, like here's a best of today.
We could do that every week.
Well, they do that on some of the shows on the radio. Like on the weekends, they have like the best of throughout the week, and they use it as a hook to get people to watch them during the week or listen to them during the week or whatnot.
Yeah.
I listen to so much radio. I totally understand.
Oh, cool. But any other comments, thoughts, or if you're watching and you have a topic or a question, I think Mike has aliens on the brain and skulls because he's just going crazy with the emojis.
I kind of remember that thing I was thinking about. So, like we were talking earlier about different cultures having similarities. And I've always wondered what kind of spiritual connection these people had with each other without even knowing, because they have exactly the same ideals, same thoughts, same experiences in different parts of the world that they had no direct communication for. And like you had mentioned earlier, Casey, about like, did Christianity steal this from them, or was it going on at the same time? And like you can see in like the Indian cultures, the Chinese cultures, like the Native American cultures, the South American cultures, they all had very, very similar experiences around the same time. Like there's the concept of like a sky war that if you look into like every religious book, they all had it around the same time. Like what were they seeing? Was this on a spiritual level? Was it on a physical level?
Or just an awareness?
Right, an awareness of it. And I wondered like if it's the spiritual connection of all of us already being connected that helped them to perceive this, even though they maybe visualized it differently, and they're just trying to communicate it their way. But it's like the exact same experience to each of them across thousands and thousands and thousands of miles. That's kind of what popped into my head earlier. And I'm so curious about that spiritual connection to people across the universe.
And also with time and space and everything, could their awareness be of something that was happening at a different time, even though they're being aware of it in that moment? It could have been something years in the future or the past or somewhere ends in the galaxy. You just, you never know. But I do believe that we have all this inspiration out there, and it's just some people are tuning into it more so than others. Like if you just take the light bulb as an example, when it got patented, like right after that, like I don't know how many other people, a lot of other people, like shortly after, all were coming to the patent office to patent the same idea. So the idea of electricity, the idea of the light bulb was out there in the ethers, and multiple people were receiving it.
Right.
It's just a question of who gets it out quicker. And in Neil Donald Walsh's book, one of the things they say, it's not a question of who God talks to, it's more of a question of who's listening and who's being receiving and allowing. But we're all connected, and it's all coming through, and we're just processing it through the different filters of ego from our past experiences, so it comes out differently. Like in the Indian culture, Chinese culture, I think I talked last week that if Reiki had been discovered in Peru, it would have been called Kenchai, because they're looking through the filters of the South American traditions. And it came through in Japan, so it was called Reiki. And we're just putting different filters on it, and then getting into arguments because we have different filters.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. It's the arguments happen because of people being unable to communicate their exact thought the right way, but not the wrong way. I mean, the right way for other people. So like their ego is also a wall that's blocking them from accepting what you're saying, and vice versa. And well, it's hard to explain in words.
Well, and now we're having all these prophecies of the Rainbow Tribe and the White Buffalo that Casey talked about last time. And now we're in the space of being able to be an allowance, I would hope. There's more and more tolerance, openness about accepting or allowing other people's beliefs. Still, we have work to go, obviously, but like if we were talking about what we're talking about today, a couple hundred years ago,
we would have been.
We would be. Who knows what would have happened to us?
Bye.
So it's great auspicious time.
Shit.
But and there's sort of this parallel, like I've seen, where we have this sort of collective consciousness arising, where people from all over the planet are having spontaneously these spiritual experiences from many different cultures. And then on a physical level, we have this communication network like the internet that we have, where we have access to information to so many different cultures. And so, so there's interconnectedness happening technologically and then also spiritually. And it's funny, it's depending on who you talk to. Like some people will talk about how, like the we're all becoming so much more distant and lost in technology, and we're just getting further and further away from true values and whatnot. And then I listen to those people and I said, really? Because that's not my experience with reality. I'm experiencing more and more people every day that I talk, even just chance encounters that I talk to people. And these people are, it may be someone who's never really talked about any of the sort of things that we talk about here. But, they talk to me because I'm in that space and they can sense that I'm not going to judge them. They say, you know what? I've had these experiences that I just can't explain. And then they'll start to tell me. And I go, oh, yeah, this is exactly like, this, or this. They go, yes, that makes so much sense. So there is this sort of they've been talking about at least this mass awakening that's happening. And I experience it more and more every day, more and more people starting to wake up to, spirit. And it's amazing to see the two parallels,
right.
though.
Well, the thing is that point of view does create reality. And if you start looking at it like, oh my gosh, we're becoming so disconnected, and you put that out to the universe and that's where you're focusing and where your energy's going, you perpetuate that experience. So the question then would be, if you find yourself being one of those people, we're losing ourselves, what could I be that would change this for me? What energy could I be that would change this for me? And start to focus on the things that what this technology could bring to you in terms of creating possibilities in your life instead of creating that separation, because energy goes where your attention flows, or energy flows where your attention goes. There we go. I almost had it. Another great example of that was when we were talking about earthbound spirits the other day. Like some people have the experience of earthbound spirits all over the place, and I don't. My point of view creates my reality, and I though I acknowledge that, it doesn't surface for me as much as other people.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm on the same boat with you, Hank. Like, I can communicate in journeying with spiritual beings. In my everyday life, I had no connection to spirits, almost at all.
That's not what Hank was saying. Hank was saying that in communicating with beings here or wherever, earthbound spirits, he means like humans that have died, who have unresolved issues in heaven and all that. But Hank is able to communicate with beings while he's not.
And I have I might have just used the wrong wordage, but that's what I meant.
Well, and my whole thing is out of context because I'm referring to another episode. So go check that one out too.
Whichever one it is.
Well, and the reason that came up is because in mid-sentence, as I was talking about it, I'm like, well, that's not true for everybody. Like I heard them telling me that. I'm like, oh, I need to put this in context because what I just said isn't everybody's experience. And you really can create your own reality based on your point of view. So if you don't like what you're experiencing, start to shift your point of view on it. You shift your behavior to it and start to shift it, and it will change. Hands down, it will change. It's just sometimes if you've been going around the same circle perpetually for a long time, it may feel a little bit hard. But if you ask the right question, if you can shift the energy in a way, even if you start a small incline to change, you're going to change your whole world over time if you're open to it and are persistent with it. And that's the other thing where the universe, we do ourselves a disservice because we'll put our intention out to the universe of what we would like to change, but we change our mind every 10 seconds. And so to be consistent with your choice is the other part of that. So you choose what you want to change, what you're choosing to change, and then be consistent with taking actions and doing whatever you need to do to consistently shift it.
Right, and visual realization works both ways. Like you were saying, if you believe in negative and focus on the negative, you're going to go in that direction. And the switch your thought process to the more positive, you find that better things happen.
Right. Yeah, and that's really the only Satan seeing anything as negative. Yeah, in terms of the polarity view. And the monality view, there is no positive or negative.
No, it's not a joke. And the polarization. It's interesting.
Yeah, and the way we describe it in shamanism, the Kara tradition, is hucha and sami, which doesn't even use positive or negative. It just means based on where you're at, does this feel heavy or does this feel light? And if you continue to choose what feels light in your world, you're going to create more lightness for you. And if you focus on what's heavy, then that's what you'll create.
And it's so amazing how when you really start to focus on that, how we have this incredible guidance system built in of just like listening into what feels heavy and light. It may start out as, you can ask questions of certain things. Okay, I'm about to do this right now. Does this feel heavy or light for me to do? But then it will translate into like really complex communication just from the simple, heavy, light sensation. So yeah, it's fascinating to start to tap into that.
The binary dialogue of the universe.
Oh, yeah.
Tension and realization. Get that down and everything else can unfold with just that simple skill.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, I think we're coming up here a little over an hour. So everyone, thank you so much for watching and joining us. Please subscribe to Stir Crazy Shamans on YouTube if you're not already watching from there.
And in the description of today's video, if you click see more, I have links for Stir Crazy Shamans to subscribe. I have a link for Shaman's Way, where Casey does a lot of meditations. And I have a link for Holistic Health and Healing. We do very different things on each channel. So if you don't want to miss anything that any of us are doing, please subscribe to all three. And if you'll find it all then.
So yes, thank you so much for your energy and your attention. Thank you, Jameson, for being on with us. It's so much
my
fun
pleasure,
again.
man. It's a blast.
Yeah, I feel out of place though. I was thinking the other day, do I need to grow a beard to fit
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
Well, maybe I do just to get I don't know. It's going to take me years to catch up to you guys, I think.
Oh yeah. How about this? I'll shave it all off and we'll grow it at the same time.
Or what can I be? What can I allow? What can I do to manifest or actualize a giant beard within a matter of days?
Jameson, you're like this. I think I found a picture of Casey and as he ages here. I'll put it right up.
I love it.
That's one of my mentors, Ken Harsh, but I really thought that, like, wow, this really could be Casey as an old man. Maybe. Who says past lives, future lives have to be, maybe they're just different lives.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. Please like, subscribe. If you're watching it on Facebook and you're going to go back and do it on a replay to catch the beginning, please start a watch party, help get the word out, and then share and subscribe on YouTube. It really helps us out.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. And
Thanks, guys.
Nike.